Happy Tuesday, happy Small Business Week. My name is Wesley Alexander. I'm the CEO of CoBiz Richmond, and today we have a wonderful wealth of knowledge when it comes to navigating our mental health, especially as entrepreneurs in these dynamic times. I want you guys to really take a moment to recognize that we are all enduring together, and we don't have to take any, we don't have to feel embarrassed or feel that something's wrong with us. This conversation is to empower us, for us to discover our options and to hear from three lovely individuals who can help provide some perspective as well as resources as we try to navigate these times. So with that said, I'm gonna have each panelist do a brief introduction of who they are and why they love to do what they do. So I'd like to start with you, Miss Kelly.
Mm.
First introduction.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the invitation to be here. Let me also say what an honor it is to be on this panel with these esteemed entrepreneurs, and I'm just reflecting them, and I know that they're reflecting me as well. So I am a executive coach and a process facilitator, primarily serving government municipalities in California. And I've been in business as an entrepreneur for about, officially about 7 years, unofficially more like 10 years. And I'm doing what I'm doing because it is my calling, because it is the request that has been placed on my life to step up and help people to see what they might not be able to see, and to be a conduit for their discovery and their transformation. So the folks that I serve are the ones with the wisdom, intelligence, and creativity. I am just the person that's there to help them navigate their strengths. And I am excited to continue to be able to be in business and to continue to be able to be in thriving business, doing what it is that I am purposed to do and what I am trained to do and what I love to do.
All right, love that. Thank you, Kelly, and congratulations on your success as an entrepreneur and someone that's serving people. So appreciate it.
Thank you.
Miss Lucy, would love to have you introduce yourself as well.
Um, I'm Lucy Seligman. Thank you so much for inviting me today, and it's great to see the panelists that we met in person last year. And Wesley, is always, much appreciated. I'm a clinical and medical hypnotherapist as well as a coach. Um, I've been doing this officially since 2015, and as one of my many businesses since 2011. Um, I work with a wide group of people, but I have to say one of my sort of special niches is entrepreneurs, since I am one myself and can definitely relate to the many challenges that are going on now, uh, on top of everything else in the world. And you asked, why do I like this? I mean, like Kelly, it is a calling. I'm only the conduit, the guide. It's my clients who are doing the heavy lifting and the work. And there is nothing more gratifying when a client, something clicks, they have an epiphany and it's like they've transformed. And that's what keeps me going every day. And is so encouraging and uplifting to myself and to my clients. So that's why I'm here.
Yes, here to support the breakthroughs. I love it. Being a conduit, as you and Miss Kelly just shared. And Vanessa, welcome, and love for you to also introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Wesley and Kelly and Lucy, everyone for being here. It really is an honor to be in space and talk about this topic here. There aren't a ton of spaces where we can talk about that intersection of where mental health is and entrepreneur life, right? And so I really appreciate just, the invitation and the space here, and hope to have a lovely discussion. Again, I'm Vanessa Solis. I'm a licensed clinical social worker, so a licensed therapist here in the Bay Area. And I own a small but mighty group practice named Empowered Mind Therapy Center, where we center our clients around empowering them in their own healing journeys, using special brain-based techniques, like, and they're called EMDR and brain spotting. We don't have enough time for all of them for me to go into all that, but they are amazing. And we love them because we center the women of color, BIPOC women experience, because we find that these types of modalities really tap into the natural, the system in the brain's natural ability to heal. So the beautiful thing about that is empowerment comes from within, right? The wisdom that they gain, that transformation that Kelly and Lucy have been talking about, right? Like they access it from a place that's from inside, not us as the, as the therapists with the fancy letters after our names, right? But the, the wisdom that they tap into for themselves. And there's no other, greater sense of empowerment that, we've seen in other types of your traditional talk therapy modalities. And so we love, love, love this work. I actually was a solo entrepreneur. I think I opened about 7 or 8 years ago. And then I expanded into my group practice about 4 years ago. So we're actually celebrating our 4-year anniversary this month, which is great. Thank you so much. And it was a wild time. And it's also kind of reminded me of these times because I, was, a therapist in the midst of the, the onset of the pandemic. I was pregnant at the same, with my first kid at the same time. There was, California was on fire and there was all this racial trauma in the world. And I knew I couldn't do this, visionary work alone. And so I think that's something that's really special about us entrepreneurs is that we're visionaries, but we can't do it, we can't do this type of work alone. And so, again, kind of to connect back to what our topic today, it kind of feels like that, right? Like, there's a lot going on and there's a lot of folks looking to, do what they can do and connect with each other to support mental health. So thank you. Thank you for being here or for
Thank you, man.
allowing me to be here.
Our pleasure, and I love what you shared in regard to doing this vision. We can't do this visionary work alone, and so community is really important. So in that spirit, if I can start with you, Vanessa,
Sure.
can you tell us? We hear the word mental health all the time, but really, what is it? Can you help define it for people? Take away the
Yeah.
abstractness of it.
Yeah. So, that's it's a very it's a big question, right? And even
Mhm.
though it seems simple, and from my point of view as a clinician, it's kind of like you can think of mental health as an ecosystem, the same way that you can think of your physical health as, your ecosystem, right? You've got your body parts, you got you got your blood pumping, you got each of the, your brain going, you got all these different things that are working together to keep the system going. And the same thing is like that for mental health. It's how we think, how we behave, particularly while we're navigating stress, relationships, our daily functioning, that kind of thing. And that includes all the pieces around emotional, psychological, and social well-being. And so, but when we talk about mental health, it's not just the absence of illness or, or that it's also about the having the presence or existence of, rest, clarity, resilience, connection, peace, all those things. So, so again, so it's not, if we're talking about mental health, it's not necessarily like the absence or the negative piece, right? It's the whole ecosystem of how all the things are working and flowing. Um, it's also, I think it's really important for us to, to recognize that while, again, it includes the emotional, psychological, relational well-being pieces, it's also deeply shaped by the systems we live in. And it's also deeply shaped by, how we experience our mental health and connected to our own identities and our social locations and where those things are, how those are impacted by larger systems at hand. And, I find myself talking with clients about that a lot because a lot of times, women of color in particular, think it's all me. It's me, something wrong with me. And that, and putting all these things into context, we can see that some of this stuff, is, not just a mindset thing, but real mental health stressors that are, a product of recessions that we're seeing, structural racism, generational financial disparities, things like that. So to answer the question, bring it all home, it's an ecosystem of a lot of different things and factors, not only disparity, but also the existence of things like restorative practices and other things like that.
Mhm.
Thank you. Such an in-depth um, answer that speaks to different experiences that people may have. It's not
Mhm.
just something's wrong with you and you need to go and that you're insane, right? It's just a
Right.
every day, how do you take care of yourself? So really appreciative of the range of insights you provided.
Sure.
Lucy and Kelly, do you have any additional insights to add in regard to what is meant, what you hear the word mental health, or what is it? Do you have any additional insights to offer?
My approach is somewhat similar in that it's very holistic. You know, you can't talk about mental health without sort of looking at the integrated mind, body, spirit ecosystem. And, you know, whether I'm working with someone in hypnotherapy or coaching, one aspect of your life you're affected, it affects all the other aspects of your life, and you can't just hone in on one thing. You have to look at the whole global picture. You know, we talk a lot about emotional resilience and how important that is. I also think these days for mental health, emotional flexibility, having very clear personal boundaries and honoring them, self-compassion, and making sure that you have a support system or a support circle, and not isolating yourself, which is something that entrepreneurs tend to do when times get tough.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
that's kind of my two.
That's awesome. Thank you, Lucy.
And I would also add, first of all, just thank Vanessa for talking about the fact that we're talking about an ecosystem, not just that, but we're talking about the systems that impact the ecosystems of ourselves. I just want to build on that and add, it isn't just what happens to me. It's what happens to others as well.
Yes.
It's what happens to the people who are in my kinship groups. It's what happens to the people that are in my family. It's what happens to the people that are my neighbors and community members. So we're experiencing personal stress or trauma, and we're experiencing vicarious stress and trauma, both of which can have the same or similar impacts on us. So mental health, physical health, it exists in a continuum of community.
Right.
Number one. The second thing I want to say is that we know as human beings, we are self-healing organisms. So we know what to do, but we forget what to do because of the systems and the environments and the settings and the situations that we find ourselves in. So I want to make sure that I am going easy on myself and others when we're talking about what to do, because I'm not always going to remember. I'm not always going to be able to execute. I'm not always going to have my resources at the ready. The final thing I want to say is sometimes we think we have to have it all together before we can say we have mental or physical or some other kind of health, spiritual health, or there's some point in the future where we get to an outcome and we're there. But transformation happens in the action taken. So the victory is in the action taken in the moment, not in the outcome. So the moment that I declare that I'm going to wake up this morning and get to my yoga this morning, I'm transformed.
Hey.
Don't have to wait till the end of the day to check off all my stuff. Getting down there on the floor, getting to my yoga practice, there is the transformation. So we always have at our fingertips, and the very little micro activities and the big macro actions we take, transformation is available to us.
I love it. Man, you guys dropped so many powerful nuggets. Just deeply appreciated that. Hope the audience is able to take away that it's not a destination. It's a daily journey, and the choices we make have a big impact on our mental health. So in that spirit, can you guys share with me? I'll start with you, Kelly. With the inflation, with the uncertainty, the times that we're in, what are you observing about your clients when it comes to their mental health at this time?
Whew. I observe that many of my clients are worried about their coaching resource if they receive a coaching resource through their employer, which most of my clients do. They're worried about will coaching be the first thing that gets cut when the organization is starting to feel the pinch of budget cuts. As I said, we serve government municipalities, so mostly. So almost every system that we are working for is undergoing some kind of fiscal, navigating some kind of fiscal hardship. So they're worried about that. The other thing that they're worried about is, or that they're bringing is just deep emotions and the expression of deep emotions. So I'm seeing and co-experiencing a lot of crying, a lot of sadness, a lot of just real deep and true expressions of those kinds of things. And remember that coaching is the space in which we welcome clients to be able to bring all of that. We normalize all of that. But I'm also seeing the want of joy and the want of life and of love, and people just really cling, because we are human organisms. We cling to the idea and to the notion that joy and life and love and beauty are things that we want to connect with. And so while we are maybe suffering in some kind of way on one side, we exist in an ecosystem in which simultaneously we can be seeking joy. So I'm seeing that. I'm seeing people who are worried about their families, and again, what's going on with the community, the people who they relate to, their kinship groups. And I also just want to say that we're talking about mental health in these times, but when I talk to some of the elders in my life, folks who have been around through, multiple iterations of these times, they remind me how we get through it. They remind me how many times they've gotten through it. And I had one woman in her 80s say to me, "Child," she said, "honey, child, this is not the worst it's been." And I said, okay. And so I'm leaning into my elders and into their wisdom and into their historical knowledge to just remember that we've come through tough times, and we will continue to come through tough times.
Love that.
And just real quickly, Lucy or Vanessa, do you guys have anything else to add to that?
The high anxiety, of everybody, building on what Kelly said, and feeling totally stuck, not knowing if they're going to have a job or not, or worries about family. There's so many multiple layers of trauma going on right now, how crippling and scary it is. I think that's kind of the bottom line. But I really like what you said, Kelly. One of the big questions I ask of all my coaching clients is, okay, you told me all the things that aren't going right now, or all the worries and all your fears. What are you doing for happiness? What are you doing for joy? And what are you doing for that on a daily basis? As you said, Wesley, you don't wait until the future. We don't know what the future is, but you can operate on what's going on in your present day, and how can you make your present day better. And not only for yourself, but for your family, for your friends, whoever else you interact with on a daily basis. And just one last thing, Kelly, I recently saw my daughter's godmother, who's 96. I mean, she's been around the block. And I literally asked her the same thing. She's went through World War II and, everything.
Wow.
She also said, we'll come out of this. I may not be around, but we'll come out of this stronger. And that's very encouraging to hear, because we feel like, this will never end.
Sure.
Yeah.
I appreciate those insights, and I will move to the next question because it's like a 30-minute lunchtime webinar, so I want to make sure that we give people some powerful takeaways that they can implement into their life. But this question is for you, Vanessa. What
Sure.
does deteriorating mental health look like? What are the signs so that people can be aware of where they're at?
Yeah. So what we've seen, and thank you, both Kelly and Lucy for, those pieces around what's going awesome, or what we're seeing, and also some of those pieces that are giving us a little bit of more um, light and things to hold on to in these times. But, yes, of course, when we're seeing, like we've been talking about, the compounding, stressors of just everyday life, not even, in these times, as you put it, Kelly, but also, again, all those structural factors and personal factors. Deteriorating mental health might look like, and of course, these aren't going to be all exhaustive or all, but some things to look out for if you're worried about, if you're noticing about yourself or someone, a loved one, right? Emotional numbness. So maybe not necessarily just, not just sadness, but really just having no real feels about anything. It could look like irritability. It could be withdrawal. from social or business spaces, just like finding yourself, a little bit more isolated than you might usually be. Especially, particularly as visionaries, right? As entrepreneurs, we're in the mix. We want to do things. We have ideas. And if you notice, there might be a lot of less of that. That might be something to look to. Um, Overworking to avoid feelings. I know that I've, experienced this one before myself. I think a lot of times, or in my own experience, I'll speak for myself. I've, my entrepreneurship and my identity get real mixed up with one another. And so if one is not, if my business not is doing well, then I'm not doing well, right? And so being, seeing, some of those patterns in that way, or maybe even not even overworking, but just, paralysis or inaction, right? Just, so overwhelmed that we're just not going to do anything because it just feels like too much, too big of a mountain to climb. Some physical signs, of course, might be insomnia, fatigue, body tension, digestive issues. These are all the types of things, again, that we'll see that stress, chronic stress, will start to take a physical toll, right? We talked about earlier that physical health and mental health. I talked to them about being different systems, but to Lucy's point, they're very much intertwined. What happens in the body happens in the brain, and brain in the body, that type of thing. So if you're seeing, impact in the other, in one, it's possible, very likely you'll see an impact in another. Um, and yeah, loss of joy or purpose, I think might be something else that I'm either thinking about. Everything feels really heavy or hollow or, just kind of empty. And I think entrepreneurs can often mask these symptoms as, just stress or the grind or the hustle or whatever. Um, but, if we're starting to find ourselves without the, joy or the motivation, that that keeping grounded in the mission and the vision, then that feels like it's time to pay attention there.
All right, thank you, Vanessa, for those
Mhm.
to really speak into what it can look like and some of the things that we all should pay attention to, not just for ourselves, but for our loved ones, for our friends that are entrepreneurs, also for our family members, for our mates. These are
Yes,
very real times, so thank you for sharing that.
sure.
Real quick, Lucy, would you have any additional insights in regard to other things that, if anything, is that you want to highlight as well that's missing, not missing, but signs to pay attention to?
When the negative self-talk really ramps up and becomes very, very harsh,
Yes.
that doesn't help anything. Disassociating, catastrophizing, racing or foggy thoughts. Um, and, let's be real, increased use of caffeine, alcohol, recreational or prescription drugs, the whole thing about social withdrawal. I do think these are kind of warning signs, and
Mhm.
it might be that the person is not even aware of it as much as perhaps the people around them. Um, but I think we all have to pay attention. And, if someone is crying nonstop, while on one level it's very good, you're getting it out, but it's kind of like, where is that coming from? um and I always go back to, what's your self-care right now? And that's of course multi-layered too.
Mhm.
That would be what I would be looking for.
Yes.
So in addition, just to stay on time, I appreciate what you guys have shared. And Ms. Kelly, can you tell us what steps do you suggest for an entrepreneur who's currently struggling? What steps would you suggest for them to take control of their mental health to be able to, as you said earlier, take action?
Yeah.
What would you suggest?
Yeah, taking action. I think take control of your mental health sometimes can maybe feel like too much, but
Mhm.
taking action in some area might be more manageable. So, just going to talk about some of the things that either I do or I suggest to my clients. First of all, be in community if possible. And that can mean a spouse, a friend, a loved one, whoever. Just be in community, and if you can, share with someone else what you're experiencing. This is a trusted person, someone
Mhm.
who's going to show compassion, not a fixer, but someone who will be there to listen. So get in community if possible. It could be someone in your church, it doesn't matter who it is, but talk about what you're going through. The second thing, engage in some kind of manageable daily habit. That might mean your movement practice. It could mean maybe you take care of pets. It could mean gardening. It could mean anything that you can do that feels grounding and stabilizing. Again, it doesn't have to be a big thing. I'm not saying go out, join the gym and spend 3 hours working out. I'm saying a small and manageable action that you can take that feels mentally and physically grounding, that is right at your fingertips. You don't have to go spend money or do a whole lot to do that. And then again, the third thing, and this helps with, this is why being in community helps, keeping self-compassion and compassion for others. And just remembering that compassion is the recognition of suffering. And when we're keeping self-compassion, we're just recognizing without blame, shame, or guilt that we are suffering in the moment and that we can take steps to try and decrease that amount of suffering. A lot of what is heavy for people these days is the recognition of suffering out there in the world. Others are suffering, right? Mm-hmm. Self-compassion is that same thing, but the recognition of it within self. So those are just three really small things. Talk to someone who can listen without judgment. Get into a small, manageable habit that's not going to take a whole lot of time or effort, and hold self-compassion for yourself as you're moving through the process.
Wow, thank you. So beautiful gems. Miss Vanessa, would you have anything additional to add to that?
Yeah, that was amazing, Kelly. Thank you. I think how I would build on that and and add a practice of slowing down to pause to determine what it is that is needed in the moments of dysregulation or feeling low or feeling down, mood shifting, whatever. Because I think, again, as entrepreneurs, we're grinding, we're busy, we're doing a million things, and the overwhelm and the stress, is already there before we even know it. And I think, finding a way to pause, to check in, right? And, and to slow down and, what is it that I need, again, in this moment, in this season, right? In this, because our businesses, again, mean so much to us. And sometimes they can take over and have us doing all kinds of stuff that maybe necessarily isn't, what is sustainable for us. Maybe it's not even, in alignment with what the current goals are right now, but somehow I found myself over here working on this other thing that's not even part of the plan, right? And so I think I'll just share, for me, a big one has been to really slow down and acknowledge what I need. And I think, in my own coming to terms with my own mental health as an entrepreneur and a leader and a mom and all this, I think one of the things that, that I hold on to is, that the healing itself in the building isn't also a personal thing, but to Kelly's point, that we're building for each other, we're building for community, and if we want to go even further, to the point of we are transcending generations of whatever of broken systems and systems that weren't built for all of us, right? And so kind of staying grounded in that truth that this is also kind of a long run, a sustainable thing. We're going to be in this work for a long time. So, and the only thing that's going to sustain that is taking care of ourselves. And it'll start with, actually acknowledging and noticing and being with, and then acting on what it is that we truly need for ourselves.
I appreciate that. It is 12:28 for the lunchtime webinar. So fortunately, as entrepreneurs, I want to respect everybody's time. But can you rapid fire, starting with you, Lucy, how can people connect with you?
You can reach me through my website, www.lucyseligman.com, or send me an email, lucy@lucyseligman.com. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.
Right. Kelly, how can people connect with you?
Thank you so much, Wesley. Please connect with me by email at coach2discover@gmail.com, and I am absolutely ready to help you transform.
And that's the number 2 in Coach to Discover.
That's right.
All right. And Vanessa, how can people connect with you as well?
Sure. Our website is www.empoweredmindca for California.com. And I am also on social media, Instagram at Hey Vanessa Solis.
Just want to thank everybody, the panelists, thank everyone who attended. Please spread some of the nuggets that were gleaned here today. Remember, community is important. Taking a moment to pause to understand what am I experiencing, what am I feeling, and then realizing these are some wonderful folks right here that you can connect with. And let's say it's not the right fit for you, they have somebody in the network that is the right fit for you. Don't think about what you don't have. Reach out and see, understand what you have by reaching out and having a conversation. We are all going through it. I'm going through it, but we do it as a village and we make it out as a community. So thank you guys for joining. Hope to see you guys again soon. Tomorrow's lunchtime webinars on networking, and hopefully you guys will be, those of you who are able to attend, we look forward to seeing you guys. Happy Tuesday.
Thank you, Wesley, Vanessa, and Lucy.
Thank you, Wesley, Kelly, and Lucy.
Thank
Thank you guys as